You already exist in multiple copies. Initially, they are all identical. And then when a moment of choice happens, both a microscopic one and one made by you consciously, these identical copies become different from one another.
So suppose you're walking in Oxford, and you have to choose to go left or right.
In that case, in half the universes I go left, and in half I go right.
This man showed a parallel reality on television. Please pay attention.
This is just a piece of cardboard with little pinprick holes in it. And there's one of them, just a single hole. This is a laser pointer that we use in giving lectures. I shine the laser through the hole, and we can see a little spot on the screen over there. And what would you expect to see? You'd expect to see, just if there's one hole, you'd expect to see one spot, but that's already not true. You see quite a complicated pattern. It's called an interference pattern. I'll tell you why. What would happen if we made a second hole? Here's another place on the screen where there are two holes. We get a completely different pattern. Through three holes, it's a different pattern again. That's the pattern we get from four holes. We can see the behavior of things like photons being affected by things we can't see. Even when one photon is going through, there's a different pattern for 6 holes, for 7 holes, for 100 holes, for 1,000 holes. And that means that there must be something traveling through every one of those 1,000 holes and making a difference to the photon that we see.
Making thousands of parallel universes.
And that means there must be at least thousands of parallel universes. In fact, the theory tells us there are a lot more than that.
The real surprise wasn't the experiment, but the words that came after. Words no one was ready for.
Is it physically possible to build a time machine that is a path from the present time into the past? And the answer there is, it's still an open question, but as far as we know, there are physical processes which would allow the tearing of the fabric of space-time in such a way there would be a pathway into the past.
This is David Deutsch, an Oxford physicist who dared to say things on live television that most scientists only whispered about. Let's break down the strange laser experiment he used to prove the existence of parallel realities. The experiment you saw him perform is not new. It was first carried out in 1801 by the English scientist Thomas Young, who used candlelight and 2 narrow slits. That simple setup proved that light could behave like a wave. More than 2 centuries later, physicists still see it as one of the most important demonstrations in science. Albert Einstein himself said it had some of the deepest implications in physics. And yet, despite its simplicity, it remains one of the hardest experiments to truly understand. But here's the more interesting part. The same experiment he showed in the interview has also been performed under much stricter conditions, using a dark filter so strong that only a single photon, one particle of light, could pass through each second. This setup changes everything. Instead of a beam of light, the detector now clicks once for each particle. A tiny dot appears on the screen, then another, then another. At first it looks random, just scattered points with no pattern at all. But the strange part is that as time goes on, those single dots start performing the same interference pattern as if a full beam was shining through. Even though the photons travel one by one, separated in time, together they create the exact same wave-like design. This should be impossible if light were only particles. Each photon should pick one hole or the other, leaving 2 simple clusters. Instead, each particle acts as if it passes through every hole at once, and as if it knows whether other holes are open. And yet, this isn't the strangest part. The next step is even harder to explain. Before going further, I want to tell you something that may help you. A few months ago, Magic Mind reached out to me. They told me about their products and said they'd like to sponsor a couple of the videos, but first they wanted me to try their shots. I decided to give them a real test for a few weeks, and honestly, I felt a huge difference. Now I'm glad to say I still use them, and I'm thankful they're sponsoring this video. What I really like is that it's all natural, with no tropics, adaptogens and matcha that help me stay focused and clear without the coffee crash. I've been using it for almost 3 months, and the difference is clear. I used to struggle with brain fog, but now I feel sharp, calm and productive every day. The shots come in 3 versions: Free, which is completely caffeine-free for calm focus; Original, with a small dose of green tea caffeine for steady energy; And Max, the strongest option, built for those high-demand days when you need maximum concentration. I tested all three, but the one I use every day is free, no caffeine. It gives me a clear focus that lasts longer than coffee. And here's the best part, they're giving us their biggest offer yet. The link is in the description, or the QR code on screen gets you 60% off your subscription, and they back it with a full money-back guarantee. If you don't like it, they refund you 100%, no questions